Welcome back to the Course of Action podcast. My guest tonight is a returning guest, of course, because he is an incredible veteran and chef. Drew Ward, corporate executive chef for Artisanal Brewing Ventures. Did I get that right?
You did. You did.
Welcome, man. Thanks for coming back. I
Yeah.
know you're in a hotel. You're on the road doing your thing. You travel a lot. You know, I guess that's kind of just the life being a corporate executive chef and ruling the world with all these breweries and all the kitchens you got going on, man.
It is part of the gig, that is for sure. So
All right, man. I know you've been here before, but let's talk about you. Army veteran. How long were you in,
4 years.
and what did you do?
I was 55 Bravo ammunition specialist. So I was in 110 Cav, supported air aviation, mostly Kiowa Warriors.
Nice. And cooking has always been a passion of yours, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit too. But let's talk about kind of what you're doing now briefly. Corporate executive chef, which sounds really, really fancy. And you've explained it to me before. Artisanal brewing vendors, a whole bunch of breweries: Victory Brewing, Southern Tier, Bold Rock Hard Cider, Six Point. I get them all. Is there another one?
Nope, you got them.
So, what's it like being a chef over that many kitchens? Most people just want to be a chef in one kitchen, or let alone maybe just their own. Be able to make macaroni and cheese without screwing it up and the kids complain. You're in charge of not just a kitchen at home, but four different breweries.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. It's super rewarding. Like you mentioned, I get to travel, which I find to really be fun. Um, and then I get to work with some great chefs in all of our tap rooms, and so it's fun. It's a great creative process for me. But then at the same time, I get to do a lot of coaching and training, which, as much as I love cooking, I also love that side of it, just the leadership side. So to help guys that are maybe younger chefs, help them kind of come up and grow, to me it's super rewarding.
So, what's it like? You said you love cooking, and obviously you're to the level now where maybe you do a little less cooking, a little bit more coaching, and bringing those guys up, like you said. But what's it like, um, seeing them get creative and bringing things to you and kind of coming up with those ideas as opposed to you pointing them in that direction? What's that like?
It's really cool. I get so every week I get emails from all the chefs, kind of what they're going to be running for features for the week and stuff, and they send them to me just so I kind of know what's happening. And sometimes I'll read one of them and be like, "Oh man, that's genius," and I'll just email them back and be like, "Dude, I never thought about doing that. That's so cool." So it's cool to see kind of as they've learned my style and kind of what I'm looking for and what really makes sense for us as a brewery. There's just certain things that people aren't going to come there to eat. So you got to kind of figure that balance out, and to see them kind of learn that and move into it and really understand it, and then add their own, every chef has their own little personal flavor, or,
Hmm.
their ingredients that their to see them add that in, it's really cool after we've been working together for a while to be like, oh man, that's something I would have thought of. So it's cool to see them do it.
So, let's briefly talk about how you became a chef. If I remember right from last time we talked, you were kind of cooking before the army, right?
Yeah, yeah. Nothing serious. I worked at Ruby Tuesdays in high school. I did the old McDonald's gig.
There's nothing wrong with Ruby Tuesdays.
Hey, salad bar was awesome. It was cool when I worked there. It was everything was we were making it fresh. We were super busy, so I really got to learn a lot of those things that would do me well later in life when I went into fine dining. Um, it's funny, my general manager when I worked at Ruby Tuesdays was just this big dude named Buddha. He'd been an offensive lineman at Virginia Tech, and that was his nickname. I don't even know if I remember his real name. And it was old school. And I just remember him saying, I can hire enough guys to fill the kitchen, or all of you can work overtime every week and get bigger checks. What do you want? And then we're all like, overtime, 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 overtime. And that whole mentality really helped me well throughout my career, because when you're in the kitchen, it's not an easy job by any means. And you're going to work long hours. You're going to work crazy days. You're going to work when you're supposed to be off. And so it was already kind of ingrained in me even before I went into the army. Like, all right, I work a lot, I work hard, and this is what I'm going to do. So that learning curve, even at a place like Ruby Tuesdays, really helped you out.
Sure, I'm sure getting to know, like experience like anything, getting to know the environment that you're in, even in the Ruby Tuesdays, and then moving on to more of an executive kitchen, at a brewery, I'm sure just the experience alone definitely helps. But what was it like getting out of the army and then finding your way back into culinary?
It was a pretty quick move. I think I had less than a year out of the army before I really got back into kitchens. It's kind of figuring out a few things to do here and there. I worked some odd jobs, trying to figure out where I was going to end up. And I was in Louisiana and started working in a kitchen and totally lied my way through the entire interview. I remember I went in and met with their manager, and she's like, "Can you make a marinara?" And I'm like, "Yes." She's like, "Can you make a bechamel?" And I'm like, "Yes." Can you make that? All these sauces. And in my head, I was like, I mean, if I had the recipe in front of me, I could make it, right? So I'm not
Sure, yeah.
lying. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. So she hired me, and just crazy circumstances. The executive chef quit like immediately, and then they brought another guy in, and then he left. And it was a small little mom and pop place down in Lake Charles, Louisiana. It was called Pujo Street Cafe, and so the owner was kind of like, do you want to try to run this kitchen because you're the only one in here that really has this passion for it? And I was like, okay, no idea what I'm doing. Um, so I was just getting cookbooks and reading constantly, and using 5 different cookbooks to make one recipe, trying to pick apart pieces, and got to the point where it's like, man, I really have a lot to learn. So that's when I decided to go to culinary school. But I would say, I think like 9 months of being out, I got back into the restaurant, and honestly, that same camaraderie that you have in the military and you're all together every day, it really plays well into a kitchen.
Oh
So
yeah, I'm sure it does.
yeah, so it wasn't that big of a change. The biggest change probably was, um, there may have been less people that were driven at times.
Hmm.
You at the same time in the military, guys you work with, you're stuck with, right? Nobody's getting fired, so you know
Yeah, that can have its pros and cons too.
exactly, exactly.
Depends on the attitude, of everybody around. But yeah, you can't exactly get rid of them. But yeah, man, I think the kitchen is something, and I've been challenging myself, cooking stuff. And of course, I follow you and I follow all the breweries on Instagram, and they make me so damn hungry. I see all this awesome food and you guys are pumping out, and I'm like, oh man, that looks so good. And, I got 2 breweries here in my hometown, and one of them does a lot of kitchen stuff, and they pump out a lot of really good looking food. I'm like, oh my gosh, looks absolutely amazing. But what's it like? What's it like being on the road and having to try to kind of eat right? I hear a lot of chefs that are like, well, I don't ever eat like a full meal. I kind of just nibble as I go and as I'm cooking in the kitchen and all that. But what's it like being on the road and having to try to eat right without eating all this food and getting fat?
It's tough, man. I don't know what it is about being in the kitchen. Just I think maybe it's just I love food, right? So I always joke that I could eat a 10 course meal, walk into the kitchen at work, and be like, "Oh, what we got over there? Let me try that." Like not even hungry, right? Just immediately, not without even thinking. Um, the toughest part on the road is, I'm visiting our tap rooms, and I'm there for a reason, right? Either whether I'm training a new menu or I'm just there to visit and see how things are going. So you got to try the food while you're there, So there's times I come in and I literally order the entire menu, and it's a
Hmm.
bite out of each thing, and maybe I do it in a 2 day window or whatever, but it's definitely, it's like, all right, you want to go anywhere for dinner? Nope. I think I
Yeah.
ate dinner at lunch, and it's tough, and then especially, so we just did 2 openings. We just opened Brooklyn, and we opened one outside of Philly. And you're with a training team that you're traveling with, and you're there from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then it's like, all right, you guys want to go get something to eat, and then of course you want to have a couple drinks, and by then it's like, man, so the first week it's like, yeah, this is great, and then after the first week it's like, nope, I'm going back to the hotel.
But you know
So
what? You have found you've always seemed to find time. At least you make it look like it on Instagram. That you always find time and find the gym. And you've been like recent months, you've been really dedicated to getting into fitness and finding a way. And you're doing a good job, because every time I see it on there, I feel guilty because I haven't done what I needed to do for the day, and I'm like, damn, I gotta get up to chef's level. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, because you're
And then,
moving rubber bands and you're tying them to your hotel pillars and to the closet doors and all this stuff, and I'm like, he's crushing it. He's crushing it. He's doing more than him, but he's crushing it. Man, how do you do that? Working 7 to 9, eating, that's your job, your life is food, and how do you find time to and the motivation to work out like that?
I mean, I guess it's like anything, right? It's the discipline behind it. But for me, I would say really right about the time the pandemic hit, I it was kind of like, man, I got to get in better shape. And I got two kids, two boys that are 13 and 11, and they're watching you, right? And they're both athletic. They both love playing sports, and it's like, man, I don't want to be that dad that I can't go do something with my kids because I'm winded, right? And I don't want to be where my kids are like, oh my god, look at my dad, right? I don't want to be that guy. And I think my wife appreciates it too. So, but um, so it's really just a mindset of this. It's not an option, basically, for me. It's this is what I'm going to have to do today. It's just like a part of my day is going to work. It's like, all right, I'm gonna work up to this. And then honestly, I just love doing it as well. For me, it's just fun. I love to work out. I love to get a sweat and feel good. Um, and it makes just such a difference throughout the day. Whereas in the middle of the day, I don't feel like, ugh, I've done nothing. I feel like, all right, I'm moving. I still feel good. I'm going. So to me, yeah, I think it's just the discipline behind it and
Mhm.
and really the want to.
So what have you seen like the biggest improvement on, like not weight, not appearance? What has been like the biggest improvement that you've seen so far in this kind of this journey?
Yeah, well, I'm convinced my weight will never move, so I'm okay with
Okay,
that now.
same.
But I'm like, I don't understand. When I was 25, I had lost 30 pounds by now. So, honestly, so used to when I get on airplanes or even in like a long car ride, I would have from right at the top of my back, or right at the lower back, I should say, right at my hip, straight down to my ankle. I would just get this like shooting pain all the way down my leg, and it would drive me crazy, and no way I could get comfortable. And since I started doing the workouts, and especially a lot of the ones with bands where I'm twisting and moving more, and then when I started rucking, I think rucking made a big difference. That pain is 100% gone. I don't feel it at all. Like, never feel it. Also, when I started working out a lot, I had a knee brace on each knee and on each elbow, because I've always had kind of crappy knees, even since I was little. But now I don't wear any of the braces. I don't feel anything in my knees. Um, my elbows sometimes seem to have, like, I think it's just getting old disease. It's like, why are they hurting now? There's no reason for this.
Right.
But I think those are really the biggest things I felt, and just energy all around, feeling better. But those two are like really noticeable things.
That's awesome, and I think it's real motivational too. For a guy like you who works long days, travels a lot, has the time to dedicate to workout and to feel better, and then of course you have the additional energy throughout the day. I think that's huge. That's a really,
Yeah,
really big deal, and I think it's a big emphasis, because a lot of people would think you go to the gym, you work out early in the morning for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you go to work in this long day. You got to be exhausted at the end of the day. Yeah, well, that's a given, but how do you stay going throughout the day? It's like, well, you get that natural energy going, and something I want to do is I want to get up in the morning and I want to work out, but I want to do the cold shower or the cold tub thing. And I've heard
yeah.
so much about that. Like, it gets the dopamine going, the testosterone going, and all these other things going, and it kind of gives you that high that lasts like all day long. That a cup of coffee you just can't do. Now, I'm not going to quit coffee because I have a problem drinking coffee. Like, it's my
I'm
religion.
there with you. So my wife's like, I'm always like, "Hey, would you like a cup?" She's like, "I'm sure. I know you're gonna make coffee." I'm like,
Right?
okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've done the. I don't like being cold in general. I appreciate living in the South where it's hot. I like it. Um, but for a long time, I've done I'll take a normal shower, but then like the last 30 to 45 seconds of the shower, I'll just put it on full cold just to kind of hit you.
Hmm.
And I've seen the tubs, man, and I'm like, oh, I want to try that, but I'm like, I don't know, do I want to try that? I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm sitting through that thing or not, but
Yeah, I don't know either. But you know what the worst part is? I don't have a tub. So I have to go
yep,
through the financial pain of going and buying one, knowing I'm going to torture myself with it, you know,
yep,
in preparation and getting the ice and the water and all that stuff. Um, you know, it just kind of makes me go, I'm going to commit myself a lot to torturing myself with this.
yeah.
Maybe I'll
Once
go
you
with the
buy
cold shower at first.
it, yeah, exactly. Once you buy it, you're like, all right, now I've spent the money. No, I
Yeah, now
have
I'm
to.
committed. Now I have to. So um, now you mentioned rucking. You've been
Yep.
really big into rucking for quite a while now. Let's talk about that. How did you get into rucking? What was the big deal about that?
I think it was just part of. So when I kind of backtrack a little bit, obviously I always worked in kitchen, so I was on my feet all day, which probably helped me not gain weight as much over the years. Not that I haven't gained weight, um, but then when I got into this job and I'm in the office a lot more, I'm sitting down a lot more, and it's like, oh, I need to be more active. And man, I hate running. I know it should be
Same.
good for you. My wife was a Division 1 cross country runner. She runs
Ooh,
every day. She loves it. She doesn't even wear headphones, which boggles my mind.
how do you do
Um,
that?
I don't know. I'm
I
like,
don't know how
I
you
don't
do
understand.
that. How do you
I
run
don't know.
without
It makes me
listening
just
to
think about
something?
how much I hate running.
Yeah, you
Like,
just listen to the sound of. I'm not picking on your wife or anything, but if she's listening, listen. I don't know how you listen to the sound of nothing
yeah,
and
she
run
loves.
and enjoy it. That's crazy.
She thinks it's crazy. She's like, "Why would you wear headphones?" I'm like, "Because it makes me think I'm not running."
Yeah,
That's why.
it's
So
entertaining,
yeah,
motivating. It's everything that the
exactly.
silence isn't. The
Yeah.
pain of my knees, I can hear it. But when I wear headphones, I don't hear it anymore.
Yep. So I got where I was like, all right, I need to do something. I need to do more cardio, more activities. So I just started reading, and I kept coming across Go Ruck, all their stuff. And I don't have a Go Ruck bag; I have a different brand, but still, the idea of it, and it's funny because in the army, obviously, I rucked, and I'd be like, it was the one thing in the army I liked over running. I was like, yeah, I could do that. So I thought, you know what? It's strength training, it's cardio, all in the same thing. So I started just, throwing a pack on, just an old pack I had and going. And then for my birthday last year, she got me my rucksack. And from there, it just took off. So, and then I just did a half marathon, my first one
I
in
saw
Charlotte.
that.
It was
What
cool.
was
So
that like, man?
it was cool. So a buddy of mine, his name's Troy. He's been on this big fitness journey of his own, right? He went from, I don't know, I think he was high twos down now to I think he's like 180 or something, maybe even less.
Wow.
And he challenged himself to every day to do something for 60 minutes. That was his challenge. And it was whether that was 6 10 minute walks or whatever, right? That's what he was going to do. And so he owns a company I buy my spices from. So met him kind of through that, and he used to be a chef, so we talked a lot. And then we started following each other on Instagram and saw he was doing these workouts. He started seeing I was doing workouts. Then we started comparing the Goggins and the Jockos of the world and all
Hmm.
that stuff. And so he reached out to me and he's like, Charlotte's got a half marathon. They have a rucking division. I was like, ah, that's cool. And he's like, I'm going to sponsor you. Our spice company's going to sponsor you to do it. You going to do it? So I was like, ah. It's like, I don't know.
Can't
I've
say
never
no to that.
Yeah, so then it's like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then of course, once he paid for it, then it's like, well, now I gotta do it, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so it was cool because I've never done any kind of competitive racing type things or whatever. So I looked it up and it's like, all right, there was 17 people the last time they had it. This year, I think they had 26 people, so it's grown a little bit. Um, and I'm looking at the times, and you were supposed to do it in 3 hours. So all of my training, I was trying to shoot for 3 hours or less, right? I thought it was 3.5. So I was like, oh, if I can do it at 3, that's great. I left a half hour on the table. And then like the week of the race, they're like 3 hours. I'm like, oh,
Oh
okay.
no.
So I'm training to the bare minimum. Okay, awesome. So, um, and so leading up to the race, I was doing a bunch, but then I started traveling a lot for work at that time because we started opening tap rooms. So I went for probably 3 4 weeks without rucking at all. And then the last 3 weeks before the race, got back into it. So I was trying to just get back my speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so come race day, like I said, my wife was a runner, so she's like, "Hey, what are you gonna do when the race starts?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Are you gonna go when everybody takes off fast? Are you gonna go with them, or are you gonna do your pace?" I'm like, "Doing my pace. I got this. I'm not gonna let people change me."
Yeah. Well, first I'm going to put my headphones in, you psycho.
Absolutely. I had those in ready to go, no doubt about it. I had a playlist built. She's like, "I can't believe you have a playlist built for this." I'm like, "Yeah, man. I got certain songs to kick in at certain points."
It's
Um,
3 hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
So um, they give you an app for the marathon, and your family can follow you along and see what your time is.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so they were going to drive up and be there at the finish line. I was like, "There's no reason for you to be there for 3 hours. Just be there at the end." And so when it started, all I had to hit was go on that, and she could track me. And of course, right off the bat, 4 dudes that I don't know why they were in the rucking division. I don't know why they just didn't do the running division. They ran the whole time with I was like, why? So they just take off and they're gone, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. And I was talking to this one dude right before the race starts, and he said, he's like, "Man, I'll be lucky to do it in 3 hours." And I was like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm not a fast rucker." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, just doing it." He takes off, right? He's gone, leaves me, and I'm like, "All right, no, I can't have that." So right off the bat, just competition kicks in. So I'm going, and like first mile hits, and it's like, and it comes over the headphones. "You did your first mile in 12 point whatever." I'm like, "Oh God, I'm going fast." So
That's pretty good.
race
12
goes on.
mile in 12 minutes walking, rucking like that.
Yeah, well, I ended up jogging more than walking,
Mm.
and right off the bat, like shin splints were going crazy. They were like on fire, and I
Oh,
found that starting to jog actually made them feel better. So I just kept jogging, and then I was like, "Oh my God, I'm still jogging. What am I doing?" And I just never been in a race like that. So Rutgers started first, then the half marathon, then the marathon. So all of a sudden, these groups of people are just coming past you, right? And they're just running,
mm.
and so then you're like, "Oh God, what am I doing? I gotta go faster." And I felt like this like special case because they'd come by you and they'd be like, "Good job, Rucker. Keep going, Rucker." I'm like, what? Like, I feel like I was like the Make a Wish kid out there or something. I was like, "What the hell, man?" So we're going, and I think about mile 9, it finally started hitting like, "Oh shit, this is still going. We're still going." And 10 through 13 is uphill. That's how the race finishes.
Ooh.
Yeah, and there was a lot of hills anyway, but that's just solid. And I was like, "Oh my God." So right around mile 10, I'm coming around the corner, and my whole family's there. They're cheering on my wife and kids, my father-in-law. So that was really cool. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." It kind of gave me another wind. Um, and then as I got to the end, I just started running. And like there were like some people in front of me that had just kind of annoyed me the whole race. So it's like I have to beat these people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're all coming to the finish line like celebrating, and I'm just dead sprint. I'm like, everybody else is having fun. I'm like, nope, there's no fun to be had. I'm winning this thing. So I think I finished. I think I finished 11 out of 26 in
Okay.
the rucking. So not bad. I had my best time for sure. But it was cool. The guy that sponsored me, he bought these sweatshirts that said "Ruck On" because that's how I usually end my videos. So all my family had those that said that, which was pretty cool. So I mean, it was an awesome experience. I absolutely loved it. I would absolutely do it again. There's a lot of things I've learned now, like I should do different. You know, maybe not start out quite as fast. And my wife said that, she's like, we were dying laughing because we're looking at it going, "Oh my God, he's never went this fast. What's he doing?" I was like, "Yeah, I didn't win my race. That is for sure."
See, it's the headphones, honey.
Hmm. I started with Top Gun blaring and went straight into
Yeah.
Motley Crue. Come on, what do you want?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I'm
No
going
going
to go fast.
back.
Working on a podcast often means late nights editing, preparing for guests, and constant marketing. I need something reliable, great tasting, and of course, veteran owned to keep me fueled and at my best. And red, white, and badass brew coffee keeps me rolling. It doesn't matter if it is a long night of writing, preparing for the next podcast episode, or just that first hot cup in the morning. These guys have my back. Check them out today at redwhiteandbadassbrew.com and find out why their brews are as bold as the American spirit. So, um, let's talk cooking and let's talk food.
Yep.
Your passion is obviously food, just as much as it is fitness. Um, really, what is it like preparing food at home since you kind of do it for work all day?
Well, the cool thing is, especially now because I don't cook as much at work, um, when I get to cook on the weekends at home, I'm excited, right? And
Right.
I actually have to kind of pull myself back because I will turn it into a whole day thing of, hey, I need to go prep in the kitchen for 5 hours instead of, hey, why don't you hang out with us for 5 hours?
Yeah.
Because to me it's like just being in the kitchen at home. We got some music playing. My wife will sit there and hang out with me. The kids are doing whatever. It's to me, cooking is the most relaxing thing I can do. It is 100% stress free. Um, so for me, it's really my way of just kind of chilling out. Um, my kids eat everything. My wife appreciates great food, so I don't have to worry about picky kids or anything like that, which is super nice. So it's fun, and we really make it an experience for all of us. Maybe we have a cocktail before dinner, and I'll make a little cocktail for the kids as well, and we have our dinner, and we sit around the table and we talk. And there's nights we'll just sit there and talk for a long time, even after dinner.
That's awesome.
Which is cool.
I've noticed that posted some pictures of the kids even getting in on the cooking.
Yeah, yeah. My oldest has always shown a pretty good interest in it. Even when he was second, third grade, he would try to write his own recipes. And he comes and goes. Like he'll get really into it, and then he won't want to help me at all. And then but lately now my youngest has been getting into it more. So like last weekend we made fresh pasta together, and he loved doing that. So yeah, they understand it. They both know how to use a chef's knife. They can cut things without cutting themselves, um, which is it's skills they need to have to at least be able to manage around a kitchen to eat.
Oh yeah,
So.
even when you're my age, and you don't have any kind of professional training, you realize how long it can take you to prepare a meal when you have no idea how to use a knife properly, and you're cranking away and cutting at it like an amateur, and you're like, this takes forever to peel a potato. Why does it take that long? And then you watch, guys like you and the big chefs like Gordon Ramsay on TV, and they're just chop 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 chop, and whole onions, diced up in less than 30 seconds, and it takes me 4.5 minutes to do it. And I'm like, why am I such an amateur? And why does this look so painfully hard for me to do? And then you know, I've watched a lot of cooking shows and I've learned a lot of little things. I'm like, oh, you know what? It's amazing what you can do in the kitchen when you get the logistics of it down and you kind of get to working on things. But what I want to do now is I want to grill you a little bit. I want to ask you some questions and I want to get your. This is everybody's opportunity to hear from a real chef with what pairs well with certain foods. So what I'm going to ask you is, we're going to do this. I'm going to choose like a different protein, and I want you to tell me what you would do with that dish and what kind of beer from one of your breweries that you would pair with it.
Ooh, nice.
So let's go first. Let's go chicken. What's a chicken dish and a beer you'd pair with it?
Chicken. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll do one that we're doing right now on the menus. So we do a smoked chicken pot pie. Um,
Mm,
Smoke the whole chicken, pull the meat, make a pretty classic pot pie, right? Potatoes, mushrooms, peas, carrots, all that good stuff. But we finish it with, in our southern tier locations, we use our pumpkin beer. So it's that big kind of pumpkin pie flavor to it.
ooh.
Put that in there, so it gives it this sweet. A lot of people, it's funny. A lot of people eat it and be like, "Did you use brandy in this?" And it's like, no, it's pumpkin. Um, so the gravy's made with beer, and then you get the smoke from the smoked chicken that come into it. It's killer. It goes great, and it's great this time of year, obviously.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's perfect, but I think of pot pie when I go to a brewery. So that sounds interesting, and obviously it's doing well. Okay. How about beef? And we'll make it fair, and we'll do ground beef first.
Ground beef. Um, so I would either say we could go empanadas. We do a ground beef empanada, which would be awesome,
Mhm.
or obviously a burger. Can never go wrong with burgers.
Okay.
So, so let's say empanadas. I love doing a lot of different chilies. So guajillo chilies and jalapenos, all that can make a good salsa out of that. Really smoky, fiery salsa. Ground beef, put in the patty, fried it. Um, Beer wise, to me, I think of that dish as kind of going a little more Mexican style, right, or South American. So I always think of a more citrusy beer. I love like a citrus kind of IPA or something that route. Our citrus beers, we change them all the time. We change so many beers, but we have from Victory, we have a Cloud Walker. It's hazy IPA. It's got that juicy fruitiness to it. I
Mm.
think that would be awesome with that. Get the spice from that.
Oh
I
yeah.
actually made like the Michelada drink. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yep.
I made it with that, and it's awesome. It's that hazy, fruity IPA, and then you got the hot sauce and extra lime in there. Man, it's killer.
Oh. Oh, I haven't eaten dinner yet. This is probably a bad idea.
I haven't eaten. So.
Okay. All right. Let's do beef again, but we'll do steak. Um, Steak. You can chop it up. You can slice it up. Doesn't necessarily have to be a ribeye or a sirloin or anything. Steak.
Steak is probably one of my favorite foods, so this is a good one. So funny, a cut that I use a lot, and I don't know that I've ever seen this cut in a grocery store. It's called. It's the worst name ever. The marketing people behind beef really need to figure it out, but it's called Terrace Major, and every now and then you'll see it on somebody's menu as like shoulder bistro or shoulder tender, petite bistro tender or something like that. But it's this piece of steak, probably 12 inches long, and they weigh about 12 ounces. And it looks like a mini beef tenderloin, basically.
Okay.
And it cooks like one, it eats like one, but it has more flavor than beef tenderloin, like filet mignon.
Mm.
But they're crazy inexpensive compared to most cuts of beef, and it's awesome. So I love using that because you can do a really quick cook on them. Um, you know, Sear that, pull it out of the pan, deglaze with some beer. An IPA would work great. Victory, we have a beer called Dirt Wolf that I love. It's big IPA. To glaze with that, hit it with mushrooms, some stock, bring that down, put a little garlic butter to finish it off. Have a steak and mushrooms. Be awesome.
Oh, okay. Throw me a second recipe you do a steak, chopping it up or doing something with it.
Um, what I think would be cool is because I'm a big fan of it is steak tartare. I love it. I love it as an appetizer. It's funny. We went to France this year, and my oldest son ate steak tartare 5 nights in a row. That was his dinner, right? Just the,
Wow.
the amount of beef that kid ate in France is crazy. But you know, steak tartare would be kind of funky to do with beer because typically you don't see it that way.
Hmm.
So I think chop it up raw, do the classic egg and some shallots and capers and mustard and a little bit of ketchup, mix it all up together. And I think that with just a solid IPA, some bread, man, I think that'd be an awesome meal.
So for those of us that don't know, I know what tartar is. I've never had it, but I know what it is. For those of us who don't know what it is, tell us real quick. Like, what is steak tartare? What does that mean?
So classic preparation, it's raw steak, right? So you take it, you dice it, chop it up nice and fine. Classically, it's presented with a raw egg yolk as well, and then it usually has capers, usually has shallots. There's always Dijon mustard in it, and you mix it all together, and then you eat that on toast or however typically it comes with toast. And it sounds funky because it's like raw beef, raw egg, but man, it's just one of the greatest flavor combinations ever. It's like one of those dishes that whoever the dude that created steak tartare was, he was a genius.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, all right, last one. Actually, second to last one because I have a wild card I'm going to throw at you. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I thought that would be kind of fun to do this time around. Is really pick your brain and get you to kind of come out. You said you like being creative, so here it is. All right, so pork. Two things with pork. Same thing with steak. You can chop it up, or you can leave it alone, like a pork chop or something. So first, chopped up steak. How would you prep ground up chopped up steak?
Uh, wow, pork. I think I would do. I think I would do like a pork patty, like a pork burger.
Okay.
Ground pork, mix it with whatever binder. I love dill with pork. It's not what you classically see with it, but for some reason that pairing I just absolutely love.
Really?
So, I would throw some dill, some breadcrumbs, some egg in there and make like a classic patty, almost like a meatloaf type thing.
Hmm.
But then sear that, put that on a bun, with oh man, what sauce would I do with that? Definitely raw red onions. I think that just goes great. Um, and maybe even this time of year, take some apples. There you go. Take some apples, cook them down in some bourbon, make like a little apple bourbon aioli. Put that on the bun.
Okay. Now
Forget
you're talking.
about it.
Mm.
Now I want pork and apples and bourbon.
Oh yeah. That's that sounds. My wife makes an apple pie, and I don't know how she figured it out, but she makes this killer apple pie, and I have to have it. I got to a point where I was asking for it on my birthday, on Thanksgiving, and on Christmas, and those are all in the same 2 months. It's November
Oh
15th,
man.
it's Thanksgiving, and then it's Christmas. So it's just apple pie, apple pie, apple pie. But it's so good. I was like, I saw like a recipe for bourbon apple pie, and I was like, I really want to try it, but like I'm so in love with her apple pie that I'm like, I don't. It's not broken. I don't want to mess with it, but I kind of want to know because I love bourbon, but at the same time, I don't want to mess with that because I love it so much. But bourbon, apples, the pork. Oh,
Maybe
yes.
you should just have a nice glass of bourbon next to her apple pie. Maybe
That's what I'm
that. Maybe that.
saying. That's probably where I'm going wrong.
There
I
you go.
haven't done that enough. Okay, pork, not cut up.
Uh, Pork not cut up. I think I would go. Man, you know what? I love like the old style country ribs. That's really not a rib at all. It's like pork butts they cut into strips and call it a country rib, right?
Mm,
Um, I grew up eating those. I love those. I think, man, cook that thing almost braise it with onions and a ton of garlic. I think, a nice a nice darker beer in the braising liquid. Cook that whole thing
yeah,
down.
get you a stout.
Yep. Pull that out. We have one called Warlock that I think would go awesome with it. Pull that out, shred it up, um, put that over some grits. Oh man, I think that would be.
Okay,
That would,
grits is a southern thing, but I like that. I like
I
the
will eat anything over grits, pretty much. Like I love grits. Um, if I was Italian, I would eat polenta all the time. But
right.
my wife's Italian. I grew up Southern, so
Yeah, how has that affected kind of your culinary palate? Like having those two different kind of worlds clashing in a relationship. How's that affected you cooking wise?
it's actually been pretty cool. Growing up, you watch all the mafia movies, right? So you kind of wish you were Italian just because of the movies.
Right.
Um, and so I married this woman who's she grew up in Syracuse, but her whole family grew up in the Bronx, right? So they're all these Bronx Italians that
Hmm.
all have the big personalities. It was like the first time I met her whole family, I was like, oh my god, I think I'm in one of those movies now, right? Like holy cow.
Am I in
Um,
The Sopranos now?
yeah,
Are they
exactly.
filming around the corner?
Yeah, and I mean, I have learned a ton about awesome food from her family, and it's funny to compare how she grew up and how I grew up. It's almost like we grew up in different decades and different worlds.
Mm,
I grew up with my mom cooked very southern. I think we had a lot of gravy growing up. We had you know pork chops and gravy. We had Swiss
yep.
steak and gravy.
Hmm.
And I loved it and absolutely loved it. And I still love it. But my wife was growing up with this Mediterranean healthy pastas, and she probably had pesto 15 years before I knew what pesto was, right? It's been cool because I've been able to take a lot of stuff from her family, and there's times I'll combine it. Right, I'll make grits, but then make something very Italian to put on top of grits. And I get kind of that both clash. That both worlds together. Um, so every Christmas Eve, we're Catholic. My wife, I became Catholic when I met my wife. Um, so we do the Feast of Seven Fishes on Christmas Eve. So because we can't eat meat till midnight. So We have some friends come over, her parents come over, and I do typically 7 courses for Christmas Eve dinner.
What?
And
I'm
yeah,
coming
and
over.
come on, and I'll cook all day long, and I love doing it. It's a little bit of my Christmas gift to everybody, and um, so you got to do 7 different fish, and we'll do some hors d'oeuvres, and then we get into the meal, and it's all plate. I do it full blown restaurant style out of my kitchen at the house. The kids help. My oldest son, he and his buddy that's always there, they present it to the table for me and say what the dish is, and we have a blast. But
Very cool.
it's a very Italian tradition. But over the years, it's kind of progressed to where there's an Italian dish. There's a super, one year I did shrimp and grits, right? Um, I always do oyster stew. My youngest son has asked for oyster stew since he was 5 years old, probably. So that's like the way the dinner starts always. It's been cool to take this Italian tradition that her family had and take the Italian dishes, but then morph in Southern dishes, and sometimes we'll do something Asian and something Mexican and just something cool.
Mm,
It's just fun. It's a blast.
that is cool. You know what I did ask you about? Fish.
Fish.
Let's do whitefish. Whitefish first.
So fish is that's like what I cut my teeth on. Um, my first restaurants in New York were all seafood restaurants when I
Okay.
first really professionally started cooking, and I love fish. I love fish more than anything. So good white fish. Let's just say bass. How about that? We go with bass. Oh man, God, I have so many ways I love it. We're wintertime. Um, Pan seared, skin on, absolutely crispy skin. Um, I think I would do like a horseradish lemon butter, put that on top of it, let it just kind of melt as it hits the plate. Um, some butternut squash puree underneath it, and some like really garlicky sauteed kale. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
What beer?
Ooh, beer is tough with that one. I think with that I would go Victory. No, I would go 6 Point. They have a beer called Crisp. It's just a classic, awesome pills, just crisp, super fresh. I
Like
think
a
that would go awesome.
lager?
Yeah, it's a pilsner, so
Pilsner? Okay.
I think that would. Oh man,
Yeah,
that would
that
go
sounds
awesome.
good. A pilsner with that. I can see an IPA, a low bitter, low on the
Yep.
bitterness scale IPA going with that too. But yeah, pilsner would kill. That would kill
Yeah,
for
they have
sure.
another beer. It's called Sweet Action, and they call it a New York Pale Ale, and it's not a true pale ale, but it's not an IPA. It's like this weird blend of things, and it goes. If I feel like it goes with everything. We
Mm.
actually make our pizza dough with it instead of water. We use the beer,
Wow.
and it's awesome. You can smell it, you can taste it. So
Mm. Okay, let's do like a redfish, like salmon. I guess it's salmon redfish. Am I speaking right?
I guess, yeah, I would call salmon like a meaty fish.
Okay,
Uh,
let's do a meaty fish.
yeah, usually I hear whitefish. I think flaky, meaty fish. I think
Yeah,
salmon, tuna,
there we go.
swordfish.
Let's do that.
Salmon. So my favorite way to do salmon, which would be like especially spring and summer, is I love salmon with peas. Right, so I'll do chopped up peas. What I actually love is peas and carrots to play with salmon in the spring. So do like a carrot puree, a pea salad, just really fresh, bright green, that
Hmm.
big grassy pea flavor.
Yeah,
Um, I think we could do some grilled salmon and do like a little what I want to do? Ooh, olives with it too. Green olive, like a little green olive glaze kind of on the top of it. Puree them up, make this little green olive topping. Yeah, that would be awesome. That I would definitely do. Beer would be hard. It has a lot of flavors happening.
yeah, it is. It's salty with the olives.
Yeah, it's like sweet, salty, grassy.
Yep.
Maybe. Ooh, I think it's got to be a lighter beer. We have a beer called 8 Days a Week. It's a blonde ale. It's super easy to drink, just refreshing. I
There you
think that'd be
go.
way.
A blonde ale. I was thinking, I was like, Pilsner's probably too light. IPA's too of the malty, too much haze, But blonde ale, that's perfect.
Yep. I think that.
Smooth, goes down solid. Like, yeah. Okay,
Yep.
last one. This might throw you for a curveball. I don't know. Vegetarian.
Ooh, vegetarian. I am not a vegetarian,
Clearly.
but I do make sure we always have vegetarian dishes on the menu. Um, all right, I'm gonna cheat and just do one that I'm doing in the restaurant right now because I love it
Fair enough.
and it's great. So cauliflower rice. We're just making our own, chopping up the cauliflower, sauteing it, hitting it with a little bit of lime and cilantro. Some roasted butternut squash, roasted Brussels sprouts, and then I'm making this. I didn't really know what to call it. I called it Korean barbecue sauce. It's not a true Korean barbecue sauce. It's more like a big sesame, ginger, garlic, spicy. I use sambal in it. Big, bold, bright flavors. Pretty spicy. I put that over the whole thing, and then pickled onions and some sautéed greens. So it's actually vegan, even more. I'm going to top the vegetarian and go vegan. Um, but it's awesome. I mean, it's packed full of flavor. You got all these
Sounds good.
vegetables. And honestly, we've had the debate for a long time about should we have things like you know the Impossible Burger or the I can't think of the other brand right now.
Yeah.
The other big vegan patty,
Yep.
um, Beyond Burger. And there's part of me that thinks, obviously, I'm not vegan, so obviously, I don't quite understand what everybody's going for. But to me, if you're vegan because you don't want to eat an animal, right? Which I think some people are straight for health reasons, but for the most part, it's right. So why do you want something that mimics an animal, right?
Mhm.
It kind of makes me laugh. And why do you want something that's made in a lab, basically, right?
Mhm.
So whenever I do vegan or vegetarian dishes, I just want it to be vegetables and grains because that's natural. That's real food, you
Mhm.
know.
Yep.
So and I mean that goes even for the carnivore side of the world, like all the molecular gastronomy and all this stuff. I never got into it. It just wasn't my style. I just want real whole food that's good for you, that gives you what you need, tastes amazing, right? And it doesn't. Not everything has to be healthy. Lord knows I don't eat healthy all the time,
Mhm.
but it's still like where it came from. You
Yeah.
know what it is,
Yeah.
right? So, and look, if I had to be vegetarian, I could be vegetarian because I love vegetables and I love grains and I could
Yeah.
eat salads and stuff like that all the time. You can make those things really, really good and healthy and great for you that taste amazing without all this weird stuff being thrown in.
Mhm. I really like, dude, I can do pork chops and steak and, broccoli and, roasted Brussels sprouts, or I have Brussels sprouts and I do them face down in the pan
Nice.
after I've done the steak while the steak is resting and I get all those juices and stuff from the steak in there. And like, I can do that. I could probably do that 4 or 5 nights out of the week. Of course, I'm a sucker for pork chops. My family doesn't like pork chops that much, but I could probably cook
Oh,
pork chops like
I love it.
religiously every single week, several times with a vegetable, and it'd be the best meal that I've had in months. You know what I mean? Like it's right there in my wheelhouse. It's perfect, and
Yeah.
it's going back to the simplicity of just real food. Just a meat and a side, and jazzing both of those up. And I'm impressed that you never, out of all those things I threw out, you never said tacos. You never said anything, traditional Mexican or anything like that. Like it was always very creative, and I think that's awesome. Really showcases the skills that you have and how creative you've gotten. And I love that you paired it with each one of the beers, and I appreciate you entertaining me while I ran you through the ringer here. But I think
Oh,
it's
it's fun,
awesome.
man.
It was
It's
great.
fun.
Now I'm starving.
Yeah. It's funny, and I think what served me well throughout my career is because I did like other than obviously before culinary school, but once I went to culinary school, my first 5 years of cooking were in super fine dining restaurants in New York City. So to have that background, I think is the reason why I don't necessarily go to a taco or certain things like that because,
Hmm.
and I think in my opinion, one of the things that make the food side of our brewery successful is that's what I bring to it, right? I always envision things as fine dining first because that was my first true love,
Mm,
right? So I'm always thinking of how do you take these fine dining flavors, these fine dining techniques, but then bring it down to where cooks that aren't fine dining cooks can do it, right? Because we're obviously not going to get the same people that a 4-star restaurant in New York City is going to get come
mhm,
work there. It's just not the same people. Um, and how do you do it to where somebody that comes in to eat at a brewery, even like you said, a pot pie, right? Like that, you first sit down at a brewery and you're like, pot pie, right? What?
mhm.
So how do you do it to work it into a brewery that people say, oh, I want to eat this food while I'm drinking,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we have tacos on the menu, and if I can put anything in tortilla, and it's pretty much going to sell,
Oh
right?
sure. Yeah.
Um, everybody's happy. They're like, oh, we got a
Yeah.
taco, great, you know. Um, but to find that balance of how do we do these entrees that are really fun or these sandwiches that are really fun.
Mhm.
They go great with beer, but also makes you feel like you're eating, maybe not necessarily eating at a brewery, right?
Yeah, eating a little something special, a little you're stepping it up a notch. And I think that lends a lot of credibility to the beer too. You know, a good beer, a
Absolutely.
really good meal, a really, you know, flavorful and fulfilling meal. Like there's several breweries in Colorado when I lived there that I went to, and the food was just outstanding. And you just don't think of that when you think of a brewery. And but it was the best food I had there was going to this one brewery, and it was just I spent over $100 there. I mean, we just absolutely crushed the menu, but it
Yeah,
was amazing. And don't get me wrong, like I love tacos. Like my judge of a business is how well they do a fish taco. If you have fish taco on your menu, I'm gonna try it, and if it's good, then you've sold me. But if it's bad, they're not that good or it doesn't taste fresh, shrimp taco, fish taco, then I'm a very judgy person when it comes to tacos, I guess. But I love a good fish taco. But I was really impressed that you never threw a taco out there. You always had something very unique. And dill with pork is interesting. I definitely want to try that now because
it's good. Pork chops are great, man. It's like just rub them with dill before you grill them. Oh man,
really
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy good.
okay.
It like puts this crust on there. All right,
Mm,
I'm gonna throw the question to you.
okay.
Tacos, flour or corn tortilla?
Man, corn.
Yes.
I'll go with corn.
It's the big debate in my house. I'm the only one that pushes corn. The other three all want flour. And look, I get it. Flour tortilla when they're warm, it is a very comforting thing to eat. It feels great,
Yeah.
right? But I used to run a Mexican restaurant, and I went to Mexico and ate, and everything was corn tortilla. It was a taco,
Yeah.
and really good corn tortillas. Man, to me, it's just really that flavor when it gets in there with the taco. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
I know they taste kind of dry compared
Yep.
to a flour tortilla, but like you said, when it gets and it's a good balance. I used to be a flour tortilla guy. Like, oh yeah, we always bought flour tortillas. But then, this little Mexican joint here in my hometown called Sandy's Tacos. Shout out to Sandy's Tacos. Probably not listening, but shout out to them anyway.
But if they
Um,
are,
they have the absolute best steak tacos, and it's just chopped up steak, cilantro, and white onion, and then they
oh,
have this awesome green sauce they put on the side. It can hot or mild. I always get mild because they're hot. Sometimes it's hot. Hot,
yep,
and I like hot stuff, but it just when my nose starts running from the time I'm pouring it on there, maybe a little
right.
too hot for me that day. But they have the best tacos, best little street tacos, and I can crush half a dozen of them or more in one sitting and not think twice about it. And ever since then, like I've been like, you know what? I just flour tortillas are for fajitas.
Yeah, and like my wife and I were in San Diego, and we went to the old town there in San Diego, and went to this little Mexican restaurant, and their appetizer was like queso fundido, right?
Hmm.
And with fresh made flour tortillas. Absolutely perfect for that. Corn
Hmm.
tortilla would have never worked. Flour tortilla was just incredible, so good.
Oh yeah,
But like when I went to Mexico, I was there for a week, just kind of doing research for this restaurant I worked at, and yeah, that was like the big eye opener for me, and it really influenced my cooking in a lot of ways because it was you order a taco and you got a corn tortilla, some meat, and they're like, there's some onion and cilantro, right? That's it. That's all you need. Maybe some salsa. It wasn't like over here where it's like, well, we've got lettuce, cheese, sour cream, 6 kinds of this,
Mm-hmm.
And I was eating it and just being like, oh my God, these flavors are crazy good. And it's so simple
Yeah.
that, this, and I think ever since then, really that, and I had a chef one time challenge me to, how do you make a great dish with 3 ingredients, right? Like, work on it. And it's hard, but you start to realize, especially like when you're a young cook, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, when my chefs tell me what they're going to run for a feature, the older chefs that have been doing it longer, you can see where they're at and kind of get, they're focused. Younger chefs tend to be like, I have these 35 ingredients that I want to put in this dish, and it's like, well, let's pull 10 of those back out, and, and I mean, it's just the natural thing. I did the same thing. I can remember writing dishes and taking them to my chef and being like, what do you think about this? And he'd be like, whoa, dude, and at first you get super offended, like, what? I know this is great, and he's like, no, this is crazy. You got to stop. Pull 10 of those back out. And, to learn to that discipline of what you should use and what you should not use and what goes well, but how to stop yourself. It's kind of like the old, before you leave the house, look in the mirror and take something off,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the old school. It's kind of the same way with cooking, right? Like, at some point, just stop. You got way too many ingredients, man. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, okay. Last question, and I'll let you go because I'm sure you're exhausted. It's been a long day. But last big question: what's going on in 2023? New tap rooms opening up. Where are we going to see you personally and kind of professionally in 2023?
So professionally, we just had an announcement about 2 weeks ago. We've signed a lease in Manhattan, so we're going to open our first Manhattan tap room for 6 Point, which is going to be unreal. It's literally across from the new World Trade Center, so pretty amazing location,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. Um, so that is super exciting for me. It's kind of like a full circle moment. I started in Manhattan, and now
Going back.
going back, even though I don't live there, it's pretty cool for me to get to have a menu in Manhattan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy exciting for me. I'm so excited to do that. As of now, that's the only place I know we're opening. So last year we opened 3, this year we opened 2, next year 1. Um, so that's a big moment. The good thing about only opening 1 is, so my goals for this year is I'm really going back into all of our tap rooms and almost doing like a retrain, and just get back down to basics and really be able to work with chefs and work with the cooks and just coach and teach and, you know, really get in there. That's one thing I've missed the last year. I didn't get a chance to do it as much. It was more of popping in and out. So just really hunkering down. And then for myself, just working on, how to be more efficient at work and how to do more and accomplish more and be more organized. I think organization is always I love to shoot from the hip, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to bring that in a little bit. Personally, I think I'm going to sign up and do another half marathon. So obviously I'm going to have to beat the time I did last year. I want to, work on my workouts to make them make more sense. Sometimes I'm just spur of the moment creative, which is fun, but I'd like to be a little more disciplined in how I'm doing, what I'm doing. And then just, as much family time as I could possibly do. I really want to get, we love to hike as a family, but we just never seem to find the time. And
Mm-hmm.
you got 2 kids, both in sports, it's just a constant
Oh yeah, it's
movement.
tough.
But I really want to carve that time out in 2023 to where we're doing more kind of family adventures, so to speak.
Very
So,
cool. All right, so where can they find? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you at?
so funny enough, I've got 2 Instagram accounts. Um, so I've got at Chef Drew Ward. That is my more professional account, so to speak. That is where you'll see all the food from work and whatever we're doing in tap rooms and announcements for work and all that fun stuff. And then I've got a second one at, oh God, I even know it, Drew.J Ward Chef. And that is, yeah, it rolls off the tongue beautifully. That is really designed for all my workouts, right? I post them every day. And it's funny. I talk to people, and they're like, "Oh, you want to be an influencer?" And I'm like, "I have no desire to be an influencer." The comment you made at the beginning, right? That's what I want. I want someone to see it and either be like, "Damn, I should work out today,"
Yeah.
right? Just to help other people do it. Or the other thing I do it for is my own accountability.
Sure.
Even though maybe nobody looks at it, right? But in my head, if I don't post that video, somebody's like, ha, Drew didn't work out today. Says he does, but I didn't see him work out,
Yeah.
right? So it's
That's a
it's
good
just that
point.
kind of drive for me. It helps push me there. So those are my two biggest things. I'm on Twitter, but not near as much. I don't
Hmm.
even know what my name on Twitter is, to be honest with you. Uh, so
Well, man, thanks so much for doing it. I appreciate it. We've been at it about an hour now. I know you got a busy day opening up tap rooms, and you're absolutely crushing it in the culinary world as well as with the workouts and the rucking. And I wish you the best. Thanks for coming by.
thanks for having me.
You're like the second guy that's hey, I'm gonna come back. Let's do it again. Let's catch up. So I think it's awesome, and you always got an open invitation. And one of these days, I'm gonna make it over to the East Coast, and I'm gonna link up with you. We're gonna go wild to one of those tap rooms you got to open up
Absolutely.
and get some food. So, man, again, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Take care of yourself, and let's do this again.
All right, man. Take care.